Part 99. My Ship Girl, My World. Author, Huangming Muji. Chapter 985. Steelencuse, in the absence of other arbiters to help you, your current behavior is to resist. Fi Long said seriously to the arbiter Steelencuse. But the answer to the flying dragon was only a cold snort and a powerful counterattack from Steelencuse. Apparently, the negotiations failed. Aren't you Ember's a mortal enemy of the Arbiter? Why are you still negotiating like this at this time? The company asked with some confusion. It seems that some previous events have made you think that we and the Arbiter are at odds with each other. In fact, the ship and the Arbiter have a mutually reinforcing relationship. However, due to some conceptual reasons, they are currently in a state of separation. To be honest, although we usually attack each other, we have a common enemy, and this enemy is definitely not both of us. So if possible, I hope to stop the war. Arizona replied to the business. If possible, we also hope, but now it seems that the other party has no intention of stopping the war, Bismarck said, so facing such an enemy, respecting her choice is the best result. That's all we can do now, Fi Long nodded and said to Steelencuse in front of him, then the battle ends here. I saw the flying dragon's sword flashing past, and a black-red light rushed forward with unparalleled power, slashing straight at Steelencuse, who had become extremely embarrassed. Just when everyone thought they could see the result, a layer of blue shield suddenly rose from in front of Steelencuse. This shield looked so fragile compared to the crystal shield she had propped up before. But everyone in the sea heard a ding, and this blue shield actually deflected the flying dragon's sword energy, without causing any harm to Steelencuse. Fi Long narrowed his eyes. Shield overload module? I didn't expect you to wear this. I would like to know how many overload modules you bring. The energy on your body can support up to 3 overload modules, so the last overload module is what? Obviously Steelencuse did not answer the flying dragon's question, and she rushed forward again with the blue shield on her head. Bismarck immediately organized everyone to start a rapid counterattack while asking Nizana, what is the shield overload module? When the flagship's durability drops below 30%, it can generate a shield that can block bullets. As long as the overload module is not turned off, this shield will exist forever, Nizana said with a frown. Does that mean our current attack is ineffective? Veneto said speechlessly, isn't this a bit cheating? No, although it sounds like the shield overload module is very strong, it is not as strong as you think. Although the bullet cannot penetrate the shield, the concussive impact will still be there. In other words, the shield overload module can withstand a certain amount of damage, but it cannot completely offset it. There is still a certain gap between it and the crystal 3-dimensional shield she had propped up before. Explained Nizana. So what do we do now? Bismarck asked. Attack, use enough attacks to reduce her shield, causing her to cause damage that the shield cannot resist, and such attacks will consume her energy and make her unable to fight anymore. Only in this way is the only way to defeat her now. Nizana said. It seems that this is the only way for now. Bismarck nodded and immediately issued the order to attack. As a result, more intense artillery fire in the sea rushed towards Steelencuse. Seeing Steelencuse moving with difficulty under the cover of artillery fire, Bismarck and others confirmed that such an attack was effective, so they unconditional execution. At the same time, the outer waters had resisted the attack of the Siren fleet. And the resisting fleet discovered that the Siren fleet coming now was getting weaker and weaker, and was no longer even enough to risk breaking through the vanguard fleet. As a result, the few militants who were arranged to resist the fleet looked back at the fiercely fighting fortress and began to think. After all, although such a task is difficult, it is only at the beginning. As long as the first few waves of attacks are delayed, subsequent attacks can stabilize and counterattack accordingly. Until now, the Sirens have been unable to make a powerful attack, and the Siren fleet in the entire sea area has been almost exhausted. The pace of the battle also slowed down, but not far away from him, the world's best battle was going on. In the eyes of these militants, who wouldn't yearn for it? Washington was naturally one of them. Looking at the siren fleet in front of her that was unable to resist, she suddenly felt bored. There were constant instructions coming from the public channel, and it was obvious that the battle inside the fortress was very fierce. Ahem, Bunker Hill, that. Washington had just spoken, but before he could finish his words, he heard Bunker Hill's fierce voice, "No, the order we received is to defend the siren attack here. Although the current situation is favorable to us, more siren fleets may be gathered later. You are the main battleship in our team. If you leave, it will weaken our strength." I haven't spoken yet, how do you know I'm asking this?" Washington said, somewhat depressed. "Haha, isn't that because your character in Washington is so easy to guess? And you look back in the direction of the fortress from time to time. Everyone knows what your purpose is," North Carolina said with a sweet smile. "Now that you know, you should let me go. Although you are right, Bunker Hill, but what if this is the siren's final struggle? Moreover, the battle in the fortress is very fierce now, and it will definitely need a certain amount of firepower assistance. Moreover, most of our fleet's power is concentrated in the surrounding waters, even New Jersey and York City. The power in the fortress is relatively empty. If I go there, I will definitely be able to help, and you can also deal with the current situation." Washington said without giving up. "An order is an order. Even if everyone in the fortress is wiped out, I can't let you go without receiving an order for assistance," Bunker Hill said calmly. Hiss. Just when Washington was about to explode, a familiar voice appeared on the public channel of the communicator. "Reporting to the flagship, all Siren elites in the sea area responsible for the Chongsakura 1st Aviation Warfare Station have been cleared. The remaining forces do not pose enough danger. Please support the main fleet. This is Bismarck." After confirming that the sea area is stable, the main force is allowed to be dispatched for support. Receive. Washington was overjoyed when he heard this voice and said to Bunker Hill, "Did you hear that? Bismarck said that if the sea area is confirmed to be stable, the main force is allowed to be dispatched for support. I think our sea area has met such conditions." Bunker Hill glanced at Washington. "Washington, Ticonderoga, Montpelier, Benson, go to the fortress to provide support." "Yes. My ship girl, my world." Author, Hwangming Muji. Chapter 986. There are many ship girls in the sea who have the same idea as Washington, although they usually show themselves in a delicate state and look harmless to humans and animals. But don't forget that their prototypes are battleships, which represent the extension of the power of a country or camp on the sea, and are carriers of the most advanced and cutting-edge weapons. Even for destroyers as petite as Mutsuki, the instinct to fight has already been engraved in their bones. Ship girls are born to fight and to show off their strength. Otherwise, even Hood, who is so elegant as a royal, would have been thinking about another royal parade. These are ship girls. Never use words like gentleness or beauty to describe them, because such words will only limit them. For a time, the more warlike and powerful ship girls in each team rushed towards the fortress. They were traveling very fast, almost everyone using their maximum speed, like wolves running fiercely in front of them, chasing the only prey they had locked on this battlefield. Some of the aircraft carrier ladies had already released their carrier-based aircraft during the journey. They controlled the carrier-based aircraft and rushed towards the fortress at a speed that exceeded that of the battleships. They arrived at the battlefield immediately and headed towards the fortress. Steelenkus, who resisted stubbornly, dropped his own bomb. Deep in the ocean waters. The destruction rate of Arbiter Steelenkus's ship is 70%, and 2 overload modules have been activated. It is now close to a state of destruction. The observer looked at Steelenkus fighting on the screen, and her status, he said to the Arbiters and Dreamweavers not far away. Interesting, This is the battle we expected, Hermit said with a smile. But it's a pity that Yan Yan and the others didn't use their full strength, Tin Palancy said with narrowed eyes. Okay, the purpose of this experiment is to test the commander, and there has been coordination with Ember for a long time. Unless it comes to the final decisive battle, the scale of power display must be controlled. After all, they are not a bad person. Although the grudge between us has ended long ago, it was also thanks to that adult," said Hermit. "The destined one is indeed unpredictable. Even if the Laplace demon has calculated it countless times, there are still discrepancies in some places. But the current state is the best result, and the Lord has come to this world. Even if it happens there are some unpredictable things, and they are also under his control, right?" Dreamweaver said. "But what about Empress? My monitors didn't find her in the sea." The observer looked at several arbiters. Hermit looked at Tempolance beside her strangely. "If I guessed correctly, she should have gone after G, but she will come back as soon as possible when the battle requires it." "Okay, then Tin Palancy will prepare a little. According to the commander's attack speed, it is likely that he will reach the fortress in area in a short time," the observer said. "Clear. Ha! It's still a lot of fun to fight like this." The light behind New Jersey flashed, and several Marquees fired a volley at Strenkus in the distance. He said very excitedly, "Don't be careless. Although Arbiter Strenkus is currently at a disadvantage, her attacks are still very powerful. A group of vanguard teams on the front line have already withdrawn from the battle. This is still with the help of Filong and the others. Without them, help, I'm afraid our damage is very serious now," Enterprise said in Beijing's communicator. "Indeed, the Arbiter's strength is really terrifying to be able to persist under our artillery fire and attacks for such a long time." York City frowned and nodded. "It seems that we arrived a little late, but it is worth participating in such a battle," Washington said with a smile while firing. "There will be many more battles like this in the future, but this time it's just a matter of urgency to create a logistics supply base that can sustain our operations. In short, when you come to the sea area, don't think about stopping, there will be a lot of battles waiting for you." Ticonderoga laughed. "Okay, let's stop chatting. There's something wrong with Strenkus's condition. It's best for everyone to be vigilant," Enterprise suddenly said. Everyone's brows furrowed for a moment. Although they were chatting, they had been paying attention to Strenkus's situation, or the modification of the ballistics and the confirmation of the location. The company's words naturally received their immediate reaction. "I saw a faint red light suddenly glowing on Stelenkus's body. Although this light was very shallow and almost invisible under the reflection of the shield, it could still be seen if you observed carefully." "Is this? Did she activate some overload module again?" Bismarck asked the Embers on the public channel. "After all, they have fought the Arbiter the most. Obviously, their understanding of the overload module and the Arbiter's understanding is very important. Be an expert in this field." "No," Nizanaw said, "to be precise, this is an early warning after the ship's equipment is damaged to a certain extent." "Early warning? Does that mean we are going to annihilate her immediately?" Veneto said excitedly. "It's still far from it. An Arbiter can't be annihilated so easily. If we could, we would have tried it long ago. But it is possible to defeat her. Injure her hull and leave her in a state of insecurity for a period of time. During the recovery period, it's enough to be unable to participate in the next battle," Nizanaw said. "Then what should we do if her hull is repaired and she comes to this world again?" Musashi asked with a frown. "By that time, we have completed control of the world. Even if she appears in the world again, we will have corresponding strategies to deal with it. The battle at that time was definitely much simpler than it is now, so instead of thinking so far ahead, it was better to focus on what was in front of me. Give it maximum damage and extend her correction time," said Nizanaw. "Understood. Attention all ships, focus all your efforts on the enemy ships. Yes. As the gunfire became more and more fierce, the red light on the Steelanku's hull became more and more obvious. The light of the shield generated by the previous overload module could no longer cover up the red light. And correspondingly, her counterattacks became weaker and weaker, and even several of the naval guns on the hull were damaged. As a result, the current attack power is far less than it was at the beginning, and even the barrage release has begun to become weak. When all the artillery fire was covered until the last main gun of Strankus was damaged, the red light on her hull reached a dazzling state. Immediately, the original shield on her body suddenly expanded, and a black-red vortex appeared from behind her. In a short period of time, it swallowed up Strankus completely and disappeared into the sea. Ran away. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Ship Girl, My World. Author, Hwangming Muji. Chapter 987. Report damage. Looking at the smoke-filled sea, Bismarck said with a sigh of relief. Although the victory was achieved, it must be said that this was a difficult battle. From the very beginning, it was full of adventure. If the enemy sends 2 or more arbiters during a fortress battle, the current situation may not be like this at all. It is a very bold act to arrange some of the top combat forces around the fortress and lead some elite combat forces to conduct a sea invasion. Simply speaking, he won the war in the end, and he made the right bet. 30 of White Eagle's companions entered the state of ship damage, and 12 entered the state of major damage. This time we were damaged a bit seriously. I'm afraid we won't be able to fight such a large-scale battle again in a short time. Enterprise frowned. The heavy Sakura is about the same. Among them, the destroyer, light cruiser and heavy cruiser were more severely damaged. There are 32 in total, and 14 have entered the ship damage state. After all, they are on the front line, Musashi accepted. After reporting to his own camp, he said to Bismarck, "The Sardinian Empire is not that serious. This is also related to the relatively small number of our warships. Most of the warships are located on the periphery. The current damage is within the acceptable range. After repairing it, we can continue to leave the station," Veneto said. Iris's condition is similar. Although she is also damaged, it does not prevent her from continuing to fight, Richelieu said. The iron-blooded are in average condition. Most of the forwards have been damaged and cannot continue fighting for the time being, Hu Teng said to Bismarck. After all, Bismarck is now the chief flagship and cannot only be responsible for the iron-blooded. Therefore, Hu Teng is allowed to serve as the commander this time. The iron-blooded flagship. Received. Our current mission is to occupy the fortress and support the peripheral sea areas. After all, the battle is not over yet, Bismarck said, so the teams that just came to support returned to their positions, and the damaged ship was ground treatment, medium damage and lightly damaged ones are all about occupying this fortress. The other main forces will support the peripheral fleet according to the situation. Clear. All the flagships nodded and arranged their affairs in their own camp. Watching everything unfold in an orderly manner, Bismarck nodded, then turned on the communicator again and contacted Prince Eugen, who was still fighting on the outside. Eugen, how is the current situation in the Atlantic Rim camp? In such a fierce battle, are they seriously injured? Do they need support? Are there any complaints? Bismarck asked. The situation here is quite stable. With our help, they can already establish a foothold here. As for complaining, they have nothing to say. They are already warriors who have fought for a long time. With such a distribution, they can also understand. In terms of battle damage, naturally some people were injured, but the injuries were not particularly serious, and there was sufficient logistical support, so even if someone was injured, they could be repaired as soon as possible. According to their original words, it was their honor to be able to participate in such a great war. The main thing is that wherever they are needed on the battlefield, they will go all out. Prince Eugen said, without the usual frivolity in his words, with a little seriousness belonging to a soldier. That would be best. The battle in the Fortress C area is over. I have arranged for people to go to your place to support you. As long as the siren attack in the C area is calmed down, the initiative in the C area will be in our hands. It's in hand, said Bismarck. Haha, the commander will be very happy to see such results. It's a pity that I'm not by his side now, otherwise it would be fun to tease him. Then Prince Eugen's voice suddenly became frivolous. Obviously it was because thinking of Qin Ji made me feel happy again. As long as we maintain this offensive, we will join up with the commander soon, and you will be free to do whatever you want by then. Not much else to say. When the battle is over, in addition to the patrol team, notify others to come to the Fortress C area. Meet up, Bismarck warned. I know, Persian Ketchen just arranges the other camps. The commander letting you become the commander-in-chief this time is a trust in our iron-blooded people and a trust in you. Don't let him down, Eugen. The prince smiled. No. After Bismarck finished responding, he hung up the communicator and looked back to see the embers. She narrowed her eyes slightly and then glided over. Thanks to your help, if not, we would have been caught off guard in this battle. Bismarck stopped and said to the leading flying dragon. You are too foreign to say that. We are now considered people from the port area and are the same as you. And we also cooperated in this battle together, so there is no need to thank you so much, Fi Long said, his tone a little dry. Although I say that, I still want to thank you. Even if it's a companion, it's okay to thank you, right? Bismarck said. You guys take a rest first and leave the final scene to us. That would be troublesome. The two nodded to each other, and Bismarck watched Fi Long and the others leave. At this time, Musashi glided over, looked at Bismarck's weird look, and couldn't help but smile. Did you see it too? Bismarck turned his head and said, I thought I was the only one who found it a bit strange. It seems that you also find it strange. If embers were as strong as they are today, I really don't know how they could have fought against the arbiters before. After all, when Magi told me before, Arbiter Strenkus appeared together with two other arbitrators. Now one arbiter has already fought so hard, so if there are two more, I'm afraid will the situation change completely today? Musashi smiled. But why do you say they have joined our port area? The sole link with the commander is not a lie, Bismarck asked in return. This is also something I doubt. As ships, even if they are metamorphized, they will not change their original nature. So they shouldn't lie to us, but now they are obviously hiding something from us. But it still wants us to go all out to discover those things. In short, it feels very contradictory and very weird. Musashi said. Perhaps they want to cultivate our combat experience for the arbiter, Bismarck smiled. In short, we can't make a direct definition until the results come out. Would you like to mention it in the report? I believe that with the intelligence of the commander, he will definitely think of it, Musashi asked. Then let's make this decision first and see what the commander thinks. Anyway, we're not sure of their true purpose right now, so it's best not to state it explicitly. My Ship Girl, My World. Author, Huangming Muji. Chapter 988. Commander, a battle report from Bismarck. Genhai took a document and walked to the door of Qin Ji's room, knocked on the door and said. For Qin Ji, although it doesn't matter if he doesn't sleep for several days and fights continuously, it is obvious that the ship girls surrounding him will not agree. Besides, the current battle was not urgent, so after one night, Genhai urged Qin Ji to rest. Although he was said to be resting, Qin Ji was also a very light sleeper, so when Genhai knocked on the door, he woke up suddenly. Come in, Qin Ji said to the door, then stretched out two hands and rubbed his face hard. When Jinhai heard Qin Ji's voice, he opened the door and walked in. Then he saw Qin Ji trying to wake himself up and couldn't help but smile. Although I really don't want to disturb the commander now, some things in this document must be, you just have to see it for yourself. Qin Ji nodded, so Bismarck and the others won. Lifting the quilt and sitting on the edge of the bed, Qin Ji took the battle report from Jinhai's hand and asked as he opened it. "We won, but we also paid a price," Jinhai said. After all, she was the first to receive the report, so she was very familiar with some of the contents in the report. "Are there any casualties?" Qin Ji asked. "That's not the case. It's just that the hull of the ship was damaged and more of the ship girls were destroyed. Combined, the number of several camps has exceeded 30, so even if we win now, we have to slow down the pace of advancement like this." "Yes," Jinhai said. "Just slow down, you can't eat a fat man in one breath, and the current battle has not yet reached a final conclusion. As long as we can continue to expand the current results, the final advantage is still in our hands." Qin Ji looked at it. Said. "Commander's mentality is very good." Jinhai couldn't help but smile. Qin Ji raised his head and smiled. "We have come this far. No matter how anxious we are now, it's useless. I don't expect all of this to end in a short time. Let's keep it like this, bit by bit. Cannibalize them, this is the best result. Besides, aren't you tired just standing there? Sit back, this battle report isn't long, but it won't keep you standing there forever." Haha. Jinhai smiled and sat down next to Qin Ji without any hesitation. Some things are better suited to whispering. The commander is very discerning now. Listening to Jinhai whispering in his ear, Qin Ji said with a smile, "I've always been very discerning, okay. Besides, you've been busy in the command hall during this time, so you should take a break now." Haha. Jinhai smiled slightly, watching Qin Ji's eyes fall on the eye-catching words he marked, and then asked, "Then what does the commander think of this result?" Qin Ji couldn't help but laugh and said, "So it's just for this matter that you are so anxious to show me this document? Huh? Why don't you think the commander is not surprised at all? It seems that everything is as expected by you. Could it be that you knew they would be like this?" Jinhai's expression was slightly surprised, because Qin Ji's reaction was different from hers. "What I guessed is fundamentally different." After quickly scanning the entire battle report, Qin Ji closed the report document. "If it's just this kind of thing, tell Bismarck not to think too much, everything is expected. They are trustworthy, but their current behavior would make them look a little weird, but definitely not what she imagined. It seems that the commander knows something that we don't know. Can you tell me? If possible, I would also like to analyze this matter for the commander to see if it is what you think," Jinhai said with a smile. Qin Ji grinned. How could he say this? If you let your ship girls know about it, then they will lose a lot of energy in the future, and the whole battle will become a joke. Whether it's for the Siren, the Arbiter, or the Ember. These people are likely to become his partners, or helpers, in the future, but he cannot offend them, so he has to start dealing with relationships from now on. There are some things I can't tell you now, because even if I tell you now, it can't change the outcome of this matter. In short, one thing is for sure, that is, they did not appear in the situation Bismarck thought, and they have nothing to do with me. And there is only help," Qin Ji said to Jinhai. "So the commander really knows something that we don't know," Jinhai said with a smile, "but you have always been by our side. Even if you are with them, there are always people accompanying you. Logically speaking, it is impossible." Haha, there are many ways to transmit information in this world, not just face-to-face, Qin Ji said with a smile, "but I am sure that the information I learned is correct, so there is no need to be full of doubts. And, do you think they don't know? Helena's ability is to master information. Maybe she already knows it when you receive this information. I do have some knowledge about this, so I came directly to the commander as soon as I got this information. If even the commander thinks this information is redundant, then I can rest assured. But how should I reply to Bismarck? I believe they are still waiting. Genhai asked. Qin Ji touched his chin and said, "It's normal, everything is as usual." "I understand, then I won't disturb the commander's rest," Genhai said, stood up with a smile, and then walked out of the door. Qin Ji looked at her back and grinned, smiled helplessly, then lay on the bed again and covered herself with a quilt. Inside the Siren Fortress, the leaders of several camps gathered in the conference room. Continuous fighting was already very tiring, but what they discovered forced them to be so cautious. Even though it is already late at night, they are all gathered here ready to go. Bismarck took off the headset of the remote communicator and turned around with a somewhat surprised expression. Musashi asked a little strangely, "How is it? Your expression seems a little surprised." Bismarck adjusted his expression and nodded to a few people. "Indeed, I originally thought that the commander would be very surprised when he received this information, but it seems that I was wrong. Genhai just sent it to me, and the commander said the opinions on handling this matter are only a few words. Normal, everything is business as usual. Is it normal? Could it be that there was an agreement between Ember and the commander? Or did the commander ask them to do this?" Enterprise asked doubtfully. "It's not clear, but this result is enough. Whether it is the agreement between Ember and the commander, or the commander's own order, it can now explain what we are confused about," Bismarck said, "so now everyone can relax your guard and go back to rest as soon as possible. After all, the time for rest like this will be very little in the future." My Ship Girl, My World. Author, Huangming Muji. Chapter 989. Helena in the room narrowed her eyes. Just as Qin Ji guessed, she had indeed received the same message from Bismarck in Genhai. It's not intentional, it's just instinct. For her, no information within her range can escape her radar. However, she did not react immediately, but wanted to see what Qin Ji's decision was about this matter. Although she has a radar on her body that can capture all information, it has no effect on the two people's whispers. It wasn't until Genhai walked out of Qin Ji's room and sent the information through the communicator that Helena showed a surprised expression on her face. Looking in the direction of Qin Ji's room, Helena whispered, "My commander, you are really surprising. Maybe there is something about you that I don't know about." Although full of doubts, Helena couldn't run to question now, otherwise how she read the information, their purpose and their plan would all be exposed. Maybe silence at this time is the best expression. After all, one day, she will know everything from Qin Ji. The battle continues. After capturing the Siren Fortress, Bismarck arranged for everyone to undergo a few days of repairs. After most of the people recovered their combat effectiveness, they resumed the battle in the sea. And with the Siren Fortress as an outpost, logistical supplies from Hawaii have become endless. This is the most critical information for the subsequent battle in the sea, and this is also Bismarck's purpose for conducting this battle. Time flew by, and in nearly a month, the ships led by Bismarck finally took complete control of the EC area and began to move towards the DC area. During this period, a shocking battle also broke out in the Siren Fortress located in C Area A. Of course, the protagonists of this battle are the ships led by Qin Ji, the Arbiter Tinpalans and the Builders. Because the method adopted by Qin Ji was very conservative, he almost launched an attack on the Siren Fortress after clearing out the relatively large Siren strongholds in the sea area and controlling most of the sea area. Since he did not adopt the same offensive strategy as Bismarck, there was no need to consume a large amount of the main fleet for sea defense. The entire main fleet was concentrated in the attack on the Siren Fortress, so to a certain extent, the force attacking the Siren Fortress this time was stronger than what Bismarck had originally. However, even with such a powerful force, he still felt a little difficult when fighting Arbiter Tinpalans. After all, the Arbiter loaded with overload modules cannot be easily defeated. Compared to Arbiter Strengthus, Tempolens's abilities are to conceal and control carrier-based aircraft. Fortunately, Shin-Ji already had embers like Ember Helena with very strong radar detection capabilities, so even though Tempolens had a very strong concealment ability, he was still caught out. The war lasted for a long time. After all, in addition to the Arbiter, Tempolens, as an experimental mechanism builder, she was also very good at hiding, and her combat method was similar to that of a submarine, making it difficult to capture in the Fortress Sea. This was a tug-of-war that lasted far longer than the decisive battle between Bismarck and the others against Strengthus. Although there were many injuries, the battle was ultimately won. After winning the Fortress War, Shin-Ji did not let the ship girls continue to attack, but stopped to rest and recuperate. Only some of the ship girls were rotated to fight, and then strengthened their control over Sea Area A. Then a supply line from the port area to the Siren Fortress was established, and only after all the injured ship girls were able to recover did they continue to carry out large-scale control. This may seem slow, but the actual effect is very obvious. Steady advancement can allow the fleet to better control the entire sea area, so when launching an attack on Sea Area B, Sea Area A no longer has any worries. At this time, Bismarck and the others also encountered some troubles, and the Arbiter had not yet shown up, which had already caused some losses to the fleet. Hermit, the Arbiter, can control consciousness and blur cognition. So for some ship girls who are not strong-willed, they were bewitched when they came on the stage with an overload mold that strengthened themselves. Although such temptation does not mean that these ship girls will rebel and become their enemies. Instead, they create too many illusions in their hearts and lose themselves. This makes fighting spirit depressed and combat effectiveness sharply reduced. Therefore, it becomes particularly difficult for fleets fighting in the sea to advance for a while. Bismarck, who learned of this situation, quickly found Ember's flying dragon and informed her of the situation. Does fuzzy cognition control consciousness? Does it feel like you are immersed in fantasy and can't extricate yourself? Fei Long's eyes flashed and he asked Bismarck. It seems that you already know which arbiter it is. Bismarck felt reassured. If Fei Long could say such a thing, he must have some understanding of the situation, and he is more likely to know who the arbiter is. Well, the only arbiter who can do this is Hermite. Her ability is to make people indulge in fantasy, unable to distinguish between reality and fiction, which will lead to depression and a sharp reduction in combat effectiveness, Fei Long said. Hermit, Bismarck narrowed his eyes, but when we fought against her before, she didn't show such ability. Indeed, Hermit did not show such ability during the battle in the Atlantic Ocean, so Bismarck did not think about her at all. Fei Long shook his head. Your strength was too weak at the beginning. Even if you attack her with all your strength, the damage caused will be very small. For her, it can even be ignored. And since we often fight with her, we definitely know more about her methods than you do. So for us, it won't work if we want to use her ability to bewitch and confuse us. Even if we are confused, there are other people who wake up in time, so there is no need for her to do these thankless things. This is also the reason why she did not use this ability when we first fought on the Atlantic battlefield. But now your strength has increased and you can damage the arbiters and even defeat them. Their targets have also included you, and another point is that you have never seen her skills, so you are the easiest to fall for. This time, it was completely unexpected that this effect was achieved. So that's the case, so what should we do now? Due to this reason, our pace of conquering the sea has become very slow, Bismarck said. So, you are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Ship Girl, My World. Author, Huangming Mu Ge. Chapter 990. The method Long told Bismarck was very simple and crude, that is, use the usual practice bombs to directly attack the confused people. Such an attack will wake up the person trapped in the illusion, but it will not cause much harm to them. Fundamentally speaking, it is the simplest and most direct way to solve such problems. Of course, in addition to this method, Long also told Bismarck another method, which is to use ships with soul abilities to spiritually purify those ships that are trapped in hallucinations. This method is obviously much gentler than attacking directly with drill bombs, but the shortcomings are also very obvious. That is, it is impossible to immediately solve the problem of hallucinations caused by ships, and ships with soul power are not so easy to find. Currently, the only ships with such capabilities are those from Sakura and Iris, such as Nagato, Mutsu, Yamashiro, Fuzu, and of course Richelieu, Jeanne d'Arc, and the like. Because they all believe in gods, they have done more in-depth research on the soul, and it is easier to solve this type of phenomenon. Bismarck thought about the reports that had been passed back recently. It was true that the fleet where these people were located did not cause much damage, and such things were easy to happen and could be solved immediately. So I just mentioned it a little bit in the document, and didn't ask for support or solutions. However, a method like this is definitely not possible to be widely used. Although some ship girls from the Holy See can be recruited from Iris, after all, although ordinary ship girls have the power of souls, they are still a little short of awakening the ships that have been confused by the Arbiter. And now that the attack has reached a critical stage, it is impossible to stop and waste so long, so as the general flagship, she informed several leaders of the matter, and they chose to use practice bombs to solve the problem without hesitation. This method is fast and quick, will not cause much damage to the ship, and will not delay the progress of the entire sea area strategy, so it can be widely used. With such a decision, the progress of the entire sea area has accelerated again, and things like this have become a kind of ridicule among many ship girls. Have you fallen into a hallucination today? If so, could you let me give you a practice round? After teasing each other like this, everyone finally arrived near the Siren Fortress. The plan to attack the fortress this time was much better than the first time. If the first time was purely an adventure, then this time it was a general attack on the Siren Fortress while basically controlling the sea area. Except for some ship girls who were arranged to control the outer waters, basically all the capital ships participated in this fortress battle. Compared with the difficulty of the first battle with Steelankus, this time it was obviously much easier. Under the restraint of the Ember Flying Dragon and others, facing Hermite who was loaded with an overload module, everyone's attacks were also very fierce. Although the opponent's attack was not bad at all and was more powerful than Steelankus, without the gravity field controlled by Steelankus, everyone's attacks still seemed less cramped. At least every cannonball can be fired accurately according to its own will without being interfered by other things. When the smoke from the entire battle had just settled, the battle damage ratio was much higher than when it was against Strankus. The losses this time are much higher than those of Strinkus. Even our Sardinian Empire has almost half of its strength and is now unable to participate in the battle. Veneto is not in a good condition now. The ship uniforms worn by the people were in a charred state, and even a turret had been destroyed. There is no way. Although Strankus is powerful, it is generally a heavy cruiser. So her attack is more focused on the vanguard ship. So last time we suffered relatively large losses in the front row, although the rear row there is some loss, but not to an unacceptable level. And now against Hermit, because she is a standard battleship, and it also comes with the ability of Ghost Flames, which can control the mind of the ship from time to time. This resulted in our main ships in the back row being attacked more often, causing the damage to the main fleet to become very serious. The ship's equipment alone was damaged, at least over 100 of them were damaged. It seems that we will not be able to move forward in a short time. Musashi's condition is not good either, but he is still better than Veneto. Her words were a bit heavy. Obviously, Sakura's losses this time exceeded her expectations. But looking on the bright side is that although we lost a lot in this battle, no one was killed. Even if the big break falls into a protective state, this can be handled. If any ship is killed, I really don't know how to write this combat report to the commander. Bismarck said with some luck, the damage among all her flagships was the smallest. Geryon has been switching between offensive and defensive postures. Her ability to withstand damage is much higher than that of the others. That's right, Enterprise smiled. In short, we won the battle this time and are very close to the commander, so we should take a good rest and report the results of this battle to the commander before rejoining him. Indeed. Holding the battle report in his hand, Shinji read it over and over again. It was different from the last time. This time he couldn't help but frown. Commander, overall this was a very beautiful battle. We have completed the attack on the sea area while keeping casualties to a minimum. The next step is for them to join us, Genhai said from the side. Shinji nodded and moved his eyes away from the combat report. I know, but I feel a little distressed when I see these damage numbers. Although I had expected it at the beginning, when this scene really unfolded, I still feel a little uncomfortable when I see it in front of me. Haha, this is the best result for us. Bismarck and the others have obviously done a very good job. And as a commander, what you should do now is to affirm their record rather than become a loser because of some losses. Depressed Genhai smiled. Shinji rubbed his face, shook his head and said with a smile, you are right, this is the expected result. If I am depressed about this result, I have really failed to live up to their expectations of me. Genhai, help me draft a reply. Let them temporarily control the current situation and let the damaged ships recover first, so there is no need to rush to join us. And told them that we still have about a month before we reach the Siren Fortress. If possible, we can form a double team by then. Clear. My Ship Girl, My World. Author, Hwangming Muji. Chapter 991. With the 3 Siren Fortresses in hand, the situation has now become clearer. Except for the ship girls in the sea area where Shinji is still continuing to advance the sea area according to the previous rhythm, Bismarck's side has entered the rest stage. Just like what Shinji said before, the purpose of rest is to better prepare for the next stage of the battle. And according to the intelligence in the 3 Siren Fortresses, if the guess is correct, the game in the 4th season must be Arbiter Empress. Compared to the 3 arbiters encountered previously, Empress is much stronger. Regardless of what happened in the secret room or Helena's story, Empress' true strength has always been a mystery. Shinji has very few of her abilities and detailed information. It is precisely because of this that he told Bismarck that they should not rush to join him, but to repair them to the best condition and maintain control of the sea area. At the same time, it will appear again during the final attack on the Siren Fortress where Empress is stationed. Because the Siren Fortress stationed by Templarans had been breached earlier, the women unanimously decided to place the frontline headquarters here, which meant that Shinji stayed here and did not need to be at sea with them. Drift. The climate in the entire core sea area is changing very rapidly now, with frost, snow and rain coming at any time. This is not only a challenge to them, but also a challenge to Shinji. Therefore, placing the headquarters here can at least make everyone feel more at ease when they are on the front line. On this day, Shinji was looking at the sea chart in the Siren Hall. When the man's next attack direction and actions were taken, he suddenly felt a strange feeling in his heart. Then he raised his head and looked at Genhai and said, Genhai, do you have a strange feeling? But something happened that surprised him, that is, Genhai seemed to have not heard his words and was still doing his own thing. This. Shinji was stunned, his uneasiness became more and more obvious, and then he immediately walked towards Genhai. But when he walked to Genhai and wanted to reach out and touch Genhai, he found that his hand had passed through Genhai's body. Genhai was clearly in front of him, but he couldn't touch it at all. Such a strange phenomenon left him stunned. But he was also someone who had seen big scenes, so he quickly recovered, moved his eyes away from Jinhai, and then observed the entire hall that had become strange. Did the sirens do it? Qin Ji thought for a while and then shook his head. It should never be done by the sirens. After all, such a thing is too unreasonable. Judging from my understanding of the sirens, if they had such energy, they would definitely not be what they are now. They still need to be turned on parallel space to conduct relative experiments. But if it wasn't a siren, who would it be? Qin Ji didn't know, but maybe he could cheat. If you wanted to shock me, congratulations, you have done it. Qin Ji looked at the hall and said with sharp eyes. At this moment, a delicate laugh rang out. Haha, he is such an amazing person that he can still recover so quickly when he encounters a situation that he has never been exposed to before, and he also considers ways to deal with it. A fiery red figure suddenly appeared in front of Qin Ji. She looked particularly charming. But when Qin Ji saw her appearance, he was very surprised. Akage, Qin Ji frowned, there is no soul imprint at all, and I am the only one who owns Akage in this world, so you are Akage from another world. Although the woman in front of him was very different from his own Shikong, Qin Ji still confirmed her identity at a glance. Haha, you guessed it right, Commander Qin Ji. Akage in front of him said with a smile. Qin Ji narrowed his eyes, so what is your purpose? To kill me? Or something else? Akage chuckled and his eyes became cold. What if I said I wanted to kill you? Haha. Qin Ji suddenly laughed when he heard Shishin's words opposite him. If you really wanted to kill me, you wouldn't have created this special space and wouldn't have said so many words to me. And you have such a powerful force, even my fleet may not be able to resist your actions. So it is very simple to kill me, there is no need to tell me so much. Then you must have other purposes, tell me and let me hear it. Haha, it's interesting. Although he doesn't have any special powers, he is indeed the person that my dear ones value so much. Akage's cold expression began to fade away, and then he regained his previous charm. At this moment, a figure in a blue kimono appeared next to Akage. With Qin Ji's surprised expression, she saluted Qin Ji. Commander Qin Ji, please forgive Akage's willfulness. Originally, I came alone this time, but I couldn't resist her temper, so it ended up like this. Shinano, you are the Shinano in my dream, so is this a dream? Qin Ji's eyes suddenly shrank, in other words, you have already come to this world. He, you reacted so quickly. Akage smiled and nodded, it's true, we are in this world, and we have been here for a while. That's right, so I came here this time just to say hello to you as a commander, Shinano explained. So he came to this world too, Qin Ji said in surprise, then rubbed his forehead. Didn't he say last time that he would not come over until the matter was over? Because the matter over there has been solved, now we are waiting for your experiment here to be completed, and then we can start it completely. And didn't my dear already say it before? He wants to see how the ship fights. I wanted to see a real naval battle, so I came here early, Akage explained. Qin Ji nodded, I see, so the purpose of your visit this time is to inform me and ask me to speed up. No, Commander Qin Ji just needs to continue to act according to your plan, and this time he came here just to inform you. The commander said that because of some rules, he can't meet you now and needs to wait until everything is completed. After that, Shinano said. Besides, there will definitely be an earth-shattering battle before this. In order to ensure the safety of Commander Qin Ji, he asked me to provide you with a layer of protection. Protect? Qin Ji asked doubtfully. Yes, Shinano nodded, and then a blue butterfly suddenly appeared in front of her, flew gracefully, and landed on Qin Ji's shoulder. For a moment, Qin Ji felt that he was refreshed. The fatigue accumulated in the past disappeared in an instant, and his whole body was full of strength, as if he had endless strength. Looking at the surprised Shinji, Shinano explained, "This protection can keep you in good condition and at the same time ensure your safety. No other force in this world can hurt you." His My Ship Girl, My World. Author, Hwangming Muji. Chapter 992. Although this kind of protection is great, a commander like me won't rush to the front line, basically outside the combat zone. And now, they have persuaded me to go to the Siren Fortress, so it should be there aren't that many opportunities to use this protection, right? After feeling the protection on his body, Shinji immediately said to Shinano, "This protection is just in case, because the next battle in the central area may expand to a larger scope. This is also a matter of keeping Commander Shinji alive in the worst case. Although the commander has the ability to resurrect and give life, according to him, there is only one life, and it is better not to die if possible. In addition, even if this protection is not used now, it can still be used in the future. After all, for the dimension Commander Shinji is in, this protection is considered permanent." Shinano explained. Dimension, Shinji was stunned for a moment. "Haha, let me explain it." Akagi on the side smiled and said, "Whether it is the world you lived in before or the world you are in now, they are all three-dimensional worlds. Can you understand this?" "No problem, I can understand this." Shinji nodded. The three-dimensional world is a four-dimensional, five-dimensional, or even multi-dimensional world. Even if it is a three-dimensional world, it will appear as a two-dimensional world when it looks at a lower dimensional world than itself. Other worlds with higher dimensions than the three-dimensional world will be the same as the two-dimensional world. Looking at a world with a lower dimension than our own will also reveal dimensional superiority. The dimension we are in is a higher dimension than you can imagine now. It can be said that except for my dear, it is the highest point that can be reached. The protection that this dimension gives you is equivalent to adding a buff to the protagonist of the TV series, or turning on his invulnerability when you are reading a novel or watching a TV series. So don't underestimate this protection. After all, not only in this world, but even in higher dimensions, there is no strong person who can surpass Shinano's strength." Akagi explained. "Ah," Shinji was stunned, "then I can walk sideways in this world." That's pretty much what it means, but this protection does not have any strength-related improvement, so although there is nothing in this world that can kill you, you still have to withstand other people's attacks. That means you can only take a beating now, but you can't fight back. After all, as a commander, your strength is always the ship girls you summon to your side, right?" Akagi smiled. "That's right." Shinji nodded, then rolled his eyes. "Then since this protection is so powerful, can it?" As soon as he said this, he was ruthlessly interrupted by Akagi. "No." Shinji paused. "I haven't finished speaking yet." Akagi smiled and said, "Even if you haven't finished speaking, I know what you mean. You want us to protect your ship girls, right?" Shinji touched his nose awkwardly. "So is my idea so easy to guess?" "Haha, your thoughts are already written on your face." Akagi chuckled. "My dear, I am very similar to you in that we both have our thoughts written on our faces before we even say a word." People on. Although your idea is good, it is not possible. Because if we do this, it will greatly hinder the normal operation of the world. Although we have escaped from this dimension, we have the responsibility to maintain the normal operation of this dimension. Your protection is very restrained and will not fundamentally have any impact on this dimension. But if you add protection to your ship girl, the consequences will be very serious. Ship girls are the embodiment of force. If you put the strongest shield on the strongest spear, you will be invincible, and this dimension will be disrupted by you. Therefore, the best result is to maintain their natural changes and let them grow on their own. Shinji spread his hands. "Okay, suddenly I think about it, I'm overthinking it." "Haha, although your ship girl cannot receive protection, there is still a surprise waiting for you after these things are over, so look forward to it, Akagi said with a smile. What surprise? Shinji asked with some confusion. I can't tell you now, and our 2 missions have been completed. It's time to say goodbye. When these things are over, someone will tell you everything. After Akagi finished speaking, he nodded to Shinano, and then the 2 of them disappeared in front of Shinji in an instant. Shinji looked at the place where the 2 disappeared. Just as he was wondering, a voice sounded from behind him, Commander, did you have any doubts when you looked at the chart? Upon hearing this voice, Shinji immediately turned around and found Jinhai looking at him with a puzzled expression, without any sense of dislocation as before. It's okay, I'm just thinking about something, Shinji quickly explained. Haha, if you have any difficult questions, just tell me. I am also the combat advisor this time, Jinhai smiled. Must. Above the space, there is nothingness, and a young man is sitting here, looking at the blue planet below. And where his eyes were focused, a fierce naval battle was breaking out there. From the beginning to the end, the ship girl's side had an absolute advantage. And their attacks were very fierce, without any unnecessary movements. Such scenes made him watch with relish. At this moment, a figure appeared next to him, wearing a blue kimono and a white tail. It was Shinano, who had left Shinji before. It didn't take much time this time. At least I haven't missed this naval battle yet. Come and sit next to me, the young man waved to Shinano with a smile. When Shinano sat down, the young man looked at the sea and smiled. What did he say? He asked me to thank you, Shinano said. Haha, thank you for what? If you want to thank me, I have to thank him. If it weren't for him, I would have some worries about these ships in various worlds. At that time, I agreed too readily and thought too little. If you put these people together, there will definitely be big trouble, and someone must manage them. The young man smiled and waved his hand. By the way, where is Shikhung City? Didn't she sneak away to meet Shinji with you? The young man asked. He was discovered by my dear. Following the voice, a fiery red figure sat on the other side of the young man and said with a smile, didn't you say you won't use your power when you come to this world? After all, the structure here is too fragile. The young man rolled his eyes. You usually stay by my side no matter what happens, but now that Shinano has left, you suddenly disappeared for such a long time. If you hadn't gone, I wouldn't believe it. After all, I am quite interested in that person, Akagi said with a smile, which was regarded as admission. Then what do you think of him? The young man said with a smile. He's very similar to my dear in some places. Overall, he's a very interesting person. I think it's right for my dear to leave it to him, Akagi said with a smile. Haha, if you say that, then I'll be relieved. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Ship Girl, My World. Author, Hwangming Muji. Chapter 993. On the Crimson Sea, a command ship flying the Azalain flag was traveling quickly. The command ship broke through the unquiet sea surface, split the water, and splashed to both sides along the streamline of the hull. Serial battles are really hard. This time I return to the frontline base to resupply, and I can finally take a breath, Hao said with a smile while sitting on a chair in the command ship hall. Haha, that's right. Going out every day like this reminds me of the first time with the commander. At that time, we were going out every day, especially when we were working with the commander for the birth of the monarch. Guanghui looked at the monarch beside him with a smile, his eyes full of nostalgia. I am very grateful to the commander for giving me the meaning of existence, and I am also grateful to him for giving me the opportunity to fight side by side with you, the monarch said, although she is as bad at words as before. She will never question herself again. The meaning of existence. For her, even if the world has given up on her, her commander will never give up on her. Senior Monarch is still the same. This time you can see the commander when you go back. Aren't you happy? Albion on the side asked doubtfully. Haha, it's not that she's unhappy, she's just a little arrogant. Guanghui smiled. Actually, there's probably no one among us who wants to see the commander more than the monarch, right? Hee, but that doesn't include the glory. Hao said with a smile. I know that the glory went back early to resupply this time, and even with sufficient anti-aircraft firepower, it still continued to take off carrier-based aircraft. And among us, Guanghui was the first to run out of supplies. Ah! Is it so obvious? Guanghui covered his mouth in embarrassment. Obviously, the opponent only has destroyers and battleships. Logically, it only needs to take off torpedo strikes to carry out the attack, but Tejas still activates the full fleet of aircraft. For a person like you who has experienced many battles, it is impossible to make such a low-level mistake, so there is only one result. He quickly consumed his supplies and returned to the fortress base with this reason. Ajax said while drinking black tea. Haha, it's not that serious anymore. Maybe it's almost time for the secretary ship to rotate, right? Dong Huang is coming down to our royal family, and as the royal family's first choice, you are Guanghui. And this was appointed by the commander. So it's understandable that I have some expectations and anxiety, Hao said with a smile. Thank you, Miss Hao, for your consideration. To be honest, since the battle started, I have rarely been with Commander Xiang. I used to always being together. In a situation like this, I really hope it will be over soon, Guanghui said with some embarrassment. Is this because Senior Guanghui has been following the commander for a long time? I remember Senior Centaur told me that Senior Guanghui followed the commander during his first semester, and he was also the commander's first wedding ship. I envy the Gloria seniors to have such beautiful memories with the commander, and the sincere relationship between the two, Albion said with envy. Indeed, the one who has been following the commander the longest here is probably Guanghui. And as far as I know, Guanghui is not a ship girl summoned by the commander, but originally a fully trained ship girl. To join the commander's fleet, Hao said with a smile. Hearing everyone talking about this, Guanghui's eyes lit up with happiness. Yes, I have to thank the prince for all this. Guanghui paused, of course not the prince of our fleet, but the Prince of Wales from the Donghuan Commander Academy. It was through her introduction that I was able to get to know the commander. If I use Donghuang's words, she can be regarded as half a matchmaker between me and the commander. Hee, it's rare to sit and have a heart-to-heart talk with Miss Guanghui like this. I was rather curious about Miss Guanghui's previous life. Logically speaking, a ship girl as good as you would be pursued by many commanders, right? Why did you choose the commander? Ajax asked with a gossipy look. With her question, others also became interested. Even the monarch, who had been silent, all looked at Guanghui. After all, we rarely talk about such things in normal times. Now that the whole topic is here, I can explain some of my previous doubts. Era, do you really want to know that much? Guanghui looked helplessly at the curious crowd. In that case, I will give you a brief explanation. Anyway, we are still some distance away from the fortress base. That's great. Seeing everyone's excitement, Guanghui smiled and shook his head, and said slowly, if Mikasa and the Prince of Wales from Donghuang Academy are the first batch of awakened ship girls in this world, then I should be the second batch. Come on. The battle at this time was not as brutal as it was at the beginning, but it was still very difficult. At that time, I spent most of my time fighting and didn't think about so many things. This was to gain some greater living space. By the time I realized what was happening, many years had passed. At that time, most of the commanders who fought with us chose to retire, and those who performed well were all rising stars. Of course, they also approached me, but I rejected them all. Because the battle has always been separate from the commander, I don't think the commander is very important. Since then, he has been staying on the front line, completing missions with the free ship girls, and living a life of freedom. And during this time, I also came into contact with more and more ship girls who fought with the commander. Suddenly I realized that maybe that kind of life would be pretty good too. So gradually I also thought about looking for a commander, but time waits for no one. At that time, my training level was already very high, and my reputation was very famous on the front line. Ordinary commanders did not dare to speak to me, but capable commanders no longer had the need to speak to me. The situation at that time was very embarrassing. When he said this, Guang Hui couldn't help but laugh. Fortunately, the Prince of Wales arranged that task for me later, otherwise I might have missed the commander. After all, the commander's original goal had always been the front line, but the plan could not keep up with the changes. His development speed was so fast that by the time he could go to the front line, he was already able to take charge of his own business. This is really an interesting story. Ms. Shinano from Shichsakura has been talking about fate. I think the encounter between Miss Kauki and the commander is also fate, right? If there were no previous efforts and no embarrassment at that time, there would be no subsequent encounters. Ajax laughed. Yes, so I am very grateful for that experience of mine, and I also cherish that encounter. Guang Hui's eyes were full of tenderness. I'm so envious. My ship girl, my world. Author, Huangming Muji. Chapter 994. As night fell, Guang Hui and the others finally returned to the fortress base. After preparing for Ningai, who was currently in charge of logistics here, they returned to the rest areas prepared for their respective camps. However, the glory did not follow everyone. Now she was walking briskly, quickly but gracefully towards the command hall. As soon as you enter the gate of the command hall, you will see a very familiar sight. Qin Ji was currently at the desk next to the chart, reviewing documents from various departments. Not far away from him was another table, and Zhenhai was also busy collecting various information. This configuration is almost exactly the same as the office in the port area, so this is why Guang Hui is familiar with it. The work here is no more leisurely than fighting at sea. On the contrary, it is more tiring. Because when fighting at sea, although fighting is very dangerous, it is already commonplace for ship girls like them who are already familiar with fighting. And the most important battles are not carried out continuously. Usually a small-scale battle can be resolved in dozens of minutes or an hour, and more time is used for vigilance and search. In this gap between alert and search, it is a very relaxing and enjoyable time for them, the battleships or vanguards. Therefore, some combat madmen and lazy cancer patients would rather give up the opportunity to become a secretary ship and go out to perform missions because of this. Compared with the time outside, the tasks in the command hall are very busy. As Qin Ji's secretary ship, he must not only accurately collect information collected from various departments, but also classify it for Qin Ji's viewing. After all, this is not an ordinary job. A single decimal point error may trigger a series of reactions. Therefore, wartime secretary ships are basically very careful and experienced ships. The ordinary ship Qin Ji will not arrange the work of the secretary ship. Even though Guang Hui's steps were very gentle, Zhenhai, who was keen, still heard it. Then she raised her head, and when she saw it was Guang Hui, the two of them looked at each other and smiled without saying anything. Guang Hui nodded to Zhenhai and then walked towards Qin Ji's position. Looking at the figure getting closer and closer, Guang Hui's smile became more obvious. She stopped in front of Qin Ji and spoke with a smile. "Commander, glorious report." Hearing this familiar and gentle voice, Qin Ji suddenly looked up and saw Guang Hui in a white dress standing in front of him with a gentle smile on his face. "Guang Hui, why are you back at this time?" Qin Ji said in surprise. Seeing Qin Ji's surprised look, Guanghui smiled and said, "Because our team's supplies have been used up, we came back at this time, maybe 1 or 2 days earlier than planned." Qin Ji nodded suddenly, "So you encountered more enemies this time? Supplies are consumed so quickly, so the battle must be fierce, right?" "It's not bad. It's like that in the core area of the sea. We encounter many more enemies than usual. If you want to occupy a sea area, you do have to go through more battles, so I guess it will be consumed faster." Guanghui's face was not red. Said without jumping. "Haha, that's good. Anyway, you will be rotating the secretary ship soon. You don't have to go out when you come back this time. You can rest in the fortress base or get familiar with the working environment with Zhenhai. In the following days it's going to be hard on you." Qin Ji smiled. "It's great to be able to help the commander. Although I have been with the commander for so long, my time together as a secretary ship is still relatively short. I also want to take advantage of these 2 days to learn from Miss Zhenhai." Guanghui smiled. Zhenhai on the side smiled and raised his head. "Miss Guanghui is so humble. You have followed the commander for a long time and are more familiar with the commander's habits. Moreover, the work of the secretary ship, to put it bluntly, is this. With Miss Guanghui's experience, these are not difficult for you at all." "Haha, Zhenhai is right. I have great faith in Guanghui's ability, otherwise I wouldn't have called your name directly when the quota was determined," Qin Ji said with a smile. "Hee, thank you for your trust, Commander. I'll go fix it first. When the work is finished today, Commander, don't forget to come to my place," Guanghui said. "Oh, okay." Qin Ji paused for a moment and agreed with Guanghui's gentle smile. After saying this and saying a simple goodbye, Guanghui left the command hall. Looking at the plump back, Zhenhai smiled and turned to Qin Ji. "Haha, Commander, a beauty invites you tonight, so hurry up and finish these tasks before you can go to the appointment." Qin Ji couldn't help but rolled his eyes. "I always feel that there is something in your words." "Haha, isn't it?" Zhenhai said with a smile, "and the commander has been very energetic recently. Miss Guanghui is back just in time. After all, she is also an energetic lady." Qin Ji was stunned for a moment, then touched his nose. "So you don't like it anymore?" Zhenhai's face turned red. Although she was the one who started the conversation, she was still a little shy when she heard Qin Ji's rhetorical question. "The point is not this, but the recent continuous work. The commander should be very tired, just like usual. But it seems that starting from the past few days, the commander suddenly became more energetic, both at work and physically. Much better than in the past. If it weren't for the commander's habits and the situation in which we get along with him hasn't changed at all, I would have to wonder if the commander has changed. Can you tell me why?" Zhenhai changed the subject. Qin Ji's eyelids twitched. He was indeed Zhenhai. He reacted so quickly to the changes in his body. Perhaps the long-term efforts of the kitchen goddess have been reflected? "I feel like I am in a martial arts novel and have opened up the 2 channels of Ren and Du. My whole body has become very energetic. If it weren't for lack of strength, I would have brought my sliding device with you to attack the sirens." Qin Ji said quickly, using the female kitchen god as a shield. "Is that so?" Zhenhai smiled. "If it's true, that's great. As long as the commander is healthy and doing well every day, then we can rest assured. But don't think about attacking the sirens with us. If the commanders rush to the front to face the sirens, then we, as ship girls, would be really ashamed." "Haha, it's just talk. As a commander, I can't cause trouble for you," Qin Ji said with a smile, finally getting over the previous question. Zhenhai didn't have too many doubts. After all, that kind of protection was really unimaginable for them.